myself and Chief Peter Talamo were ordered to report to 7 World Trade Center because the Mayor's Office of Emergency Management was being activated. Based on the proximity of 7 World Trade Center to the actual World Trade Center towers, I was a little apprehensive about going down there in the first place.
I ran into the North Tower. Pete Hayden, who's a deputy chief, was there. He was set up at the command post. I went up to him. I said, "Pete, what do you need?" And he told me that they had reports of people trapped on the 21st and 25th floor. I grabbed one of the companies from the staging area. "You guys ready to go? You have your extra tools, extra cylinders for the mask?" They had everything. I said, "Let's go."
I got out onto Greenwich Street and ran into my apartment building. Got up to the 7th floor and saw that my roommates were just all huddled together.
Developments coming fast and furious this morning. A late word out of Washington from a source in the nation's capital. The White House has been threatened with a terrorist attack. Also, all airports nationwide shut down.
I gathered a couple things and threw them in my backpack, and we headed out to the street.
The whole scene itself was unbelievable. You couldn't really describe it. It seemed almost like something that was shot out of a movie, something that wasn't real. I was directed by one of our supervisors to keep the pedestrians out of the street as they're looking up towards the World Trade Center. You had to get their attention and tell them to stay on the sidewalk, keep the area clear.
At that point, the firemen were coming. I remember turning around and watching them go, and I just remember thinking there was no way I could do that. And I wouldn't even know where to begin.
We took the elevator up to the 16th floor and then went to the stairwell, to the C stairwell, and started working our way up to the 21st floor. There were people still coming down, nonstop.
When we entered 7 World Trade Center, the lower lobby was pretty deserted. 7 World Trade Center was being evacuated, so we were basically in a holding pattern in the lower lobby.
We got to the block just north of the North Tower. At that time, we heard a cracking noise, and nobody knew what it was. So we kept walking a little bit further, and then we heard the cracking noise again.
We got to the 21st floor, the 25th floor, the 2 assignments we had. There were firemen already helping the people who needed help there. So I just started working my way further up.
I stopped into a deli on Greenwich Street and grabbed something to drink. When I walked outside of the deli, I just looked to my left.
I felt an actual pressure drop in the lobby. And although we're talking about seconds here, it seemed like time had stopped for those few seconds.
There was almost like a quietness, and there was such peace.
And I yelled over to Chief Talamo, who was standing by the window looking up at the tower, "Chief, get back here."
And this incredible noise started. So loud and so overpowering, everyone froze.
And when I looked up, I saw the building that I was just in collapse.
I could feel my body compressing. I screamed out to the chief, "This is the big one." And I turned my back towards the street.
We were waiting any second for the ceiling to just explode, because that's what it sounded like. Something was coming.
I could feel an explosion in the lobby, and I was thrown up against the wall I was standing next to.
It was unbelievable. The sound was just, it was just thunderous.
We didn't hear sirens. We didn't hear screams.
It took 10 seconds for that building to collapse.
And then you looked up, and all of a sudden this huge, gigantic cloud that was filled of smoke and debris started to hit me. And I turned and I started to run. I had only gotten about 20 feet when I was just overtaken by all the debris that was raining down on us.
That's when I heard a loud whoosh. I could see that there was almost like an avalanche of ash coming down the street. The debris just raced down every street to the river like a bullet.
It was only the grace of God, and that I just heard a small, still voice. It said, "Under the car," and I dove underneath the parked cars that were on the street.
And then all of a sudden it stopped, and there was silence in that lobby. And I opened my eyes, and it's totally black. I don't think it was a matter of being scared. It was just a matter of thinking to myself that this may be the end of my life.
The whole entire tower had just come down, and such blackness had materialized, and there was such an intensity of heat. I got the impression that the vehicle that I was underneath was going to just burst into flames.
A couple of people ran into the back of the deli trying to get out the back door. When they opened the back door, all the ash came in, so I knew we were completely surrounded. I really, really thought that we were going to suffocate.
Your eyes were burning, your nose was burning, your throat was burning, and I started to think of my loved ones, and I said, I can't believe I'm going to die like this underneath a car.
I got on the radio and tried to find out what was going on. Does anyone know what happened? You heard someone say the tower came down. I was in the North Tower. The whole North Tower didn't come down, so it had to be the South Tower. I immediately knew that there were hundreds of firemen in there that just died.
Units stand by for this transmission. We got 6 World Trade, 7 World Trade, and the North Tower. We got report the officers trapped.
The entire lobby of 7 World Trade Center was destroyed. It was as if I was locked in a closet with absolutely no light. I probably could have laid down there and suffocated and maybe died there, but I had a will to survive. I had to find that one door that hopefully would lead to safety.
This is Tower. We have people trapped in the building on the first floor. All right, 10-4, we have multiple units on the way in at this time, Kate. 10-4.
You're getting nothing but mayday calls on the radio where I'm trapped here, I'm trapped there, I remember being here, and that's where I think I am now, come get me.
Now anything's possible. So we knew that if the first tower can collapse, the second tower is just a matter of time. But the brain surgeons we are, we just stayed where we were. we didn't leave, we just stayed and helped.
Without anyone else to take command, I gave the order to evacuate the North Tower. Drop your tools, drop your masks, we're getting out.
I did have an intimate knowledge of possibly the one escape route in that lower lobby. I started moving in pitch blackness towards what I thought was that area. At a certain point, some light was filtering through, and the light was the door that led to the loading dock. When I got to the door, the bag that I thought I was dragging was actually a person. It's one of the things I can't explain. I thought that I had a bag in my hand. I thought I had the giant hazardous materials duffel. All of a sudden, Chief Talamo appears, and he's dragging someone that's injured. He brought his injured through the door. I brought my injured through the door, and we made it into that area of safety.
It was just a thick, thick blizzard of snow. You couldn't see a few feet in front of you, and I just started heading towards the World Trade Center, and everyone was coming out, and it was chaos everywhere. People walking in the streets, people had gashes out of their head and blood coming down their faces.
We left 7 World Trade Center and went up to Sheriff Mathis's office. He couldn't believe the condition we were in. I was physically hurting because I was having a really difficult time breathing. I was having a difficult time seeing. I was in a state of shock.
I got to the approach of the Brooklyn Bridge, and that's when I ran into an in-law of mine, and I was just really traumatized, and he saw me in the crowd, and he said, you know, just come with me, and we're just going to walk as far as we can.
The kids were saying, which tower is Daddy in? And I just could remember that he was in the tower with the antenna on it, and I kept saying, well, he's okay, he's okay.
I waited till the stairwells cleared above me. And so then I started going down. I went down the B stairwell. I was relieved. I was originally on the 30th floor, the 20s, the teens. Now I'm in the single digits. Now, we're going to be out of here in a couple minutes.
The crowds of individuals who had been in the buildings adjacent to the World Trade Center had started to come out. And I kept telling them, move back. You got to keep moving back. All of a sudden, you just heard an earth-shattering explosion.
It's an indescribable noise. I tried to run. I got 1 or 2 steps, and then something hit me, knocked me down, and then the floor gave out from underneath me, and I fell.
At this point, you really didn't know which way to run. So we ran in the direction that our bodies were pretty much pointing. You didn't know really what the collapse zone was, so there was always a fear of, you know, how far away is far enough.
And everyone just ran and dived into cars and just prayed. I just prayed.
No, Lord, not again. Not again. The debris just seemed to engulf us and trap us, and individuals were screaming, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Take your shirt, breathe through a shirt, breathe through a handkerchief. You're going to make this, you're going to be all right, you're going to make it.
There was a million thoughts going through my mind. Is this going to be my last thought? Is it going to be over now? Is it going to be over a second from now? When is it going to be over? I just didn't want to suffer. I wanted it to be quick.
We saw a bagel store. We dove into that. You know, that's when the debris all started hitting the windows and, you know, just enveloped us in darkness.
We were watching live TV coverage. The TV just blacked out, and I thought, this is it. This is it.
The South Tower took 10 seconds to collapse. The North Tower took 8. I was in that North Tower. It was dark, it was black. And I thought, well, I guess I'm dead. You know, this is what it must be like to be dead. Your thought process continues, but you're dead. Says, not bad. And then a couple seconds later says, I don't think I'm dead. Because then I start feeling my body. Miraculously, this small little area with the one stairway, everything collapsed around it. So I called out, is anyone else here? And after a couple seconds, I got a response. Yeah, I'm here. Another one, I'm here too.
You can hear the screaming from outside the bagel store. I made my way to the door, opened the door, and just started yelling and screaming, "If you can hear my voice, come to my voice, we have shelter." I got a response of, "We can't move, we need help." And I proceeded to go out into the darkness, into the debris, to just grab as many people as I can.
Everybody that he pulled off the street, I had a line of them going into the back, and I was hosing them off. This guy needed water, he was covered in soot, I washed him off. Does he need medical aid? No? Okay, let's go to the next guy.
Finally, the debris had stopped, and I asked everybody who was with me in the crowd, were they all right? And they said, yeah, we're fine.
Got up and started walking back towards the World Trade, and it was just so thick and you couldn't see anybody, and they were pushing everybody north, and the police were like, go back, go back. They made us leave the area, and we ended up at Stuyvesant School.
A guy got on the payphone and called 911, and I remember thinking to myself that was like such an absurd thing to do. But within a few minutes of that call, I'd say between 5 and 7 of New York Fire Department came to the back, opened the door, and said, you guys have to evacuate.
Watching these towers fall, I was absolutely in disbelief. I mean, we were sitting on our rooftop, and literally the entire city cried, no, no, no. I mean, echoed through the city. This nervous energy took over, and I have to work. What do I do? What do I do? I couldn't sit there. I hopped on my bike and pedaled as fast as I could to the scene.
It seemed like forever waiting and waiting around. And everyone was frustrated because we thought there were thousands and thousands of bodies waiting alive. And we just wanted to get in there, but they wouldn't. They stopped us, and they only would let firemen in. And we said, well, who's going to help the firemen?
I just knew that as a firefighter that we had our hands full. It was total devastation. It's the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. I had asked for Chief Downey, and they said he's missing. I asked for Chief Palillo, he's missing. Chief Moran, Chief Casper, they were all gone.
I was calling for help on one handy-talkie. I was going through all the channels, giving maydays. I felt I was alive in this void, but there's 100 floors of rubble above me, and there's no way anyone's ever going to get to us. It was over an hour and a half to 2 hours before I actually raised someone. And I raised another chief who I know. I was telling him, Mark, we're in the building. We're in the North Tower, the B stairway. They couldn't get into us.
The initial waiting period, was very difficult. An hour would go by and it felt like an eternity. I mean, we had all of the phones and the cell phones and the portable phone, and we had them all outside on the table, and we were just sitting there waiting for my father to call or to come home.
Inside, outside, the phone would ring, the TV was on. There really wasn't anything anyone could do, so it was really just a matter of sitting and waiting.
Arriving at Ground Zero, there was a silence, very much like a snowstorm, a muffle. But through the muffle you could hear beeps, beeping sound just everywhere, surrounded, sort of little alarms. Apparently firemen have a sort of sensor, a beeping sensor, so the surrounding beeping, I think, were the trapped firemen in the wreckage.
After a while, I started noticing a light, a very dim light above us. I actually thought I was hallucinating. And I asked anyone else, did anyone else see this light? And other people saw it too. After a little while longer, I'm looking at it, I said, I got to go see what that light is. And then I climbed up to the light. I climbed out, it was a hole, and I got out, and then all of a sudden I'm on top of this big pile of debris. And I could see the rubble field. I could see buildings on fire. I could see the devastation. What I didn't see is any people. No one.
A group of firemen passed